Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
And I'm TK.
And that makes this X's for podcast, where we like to respond to some big stuff happening in comics. And so this was supposed to be yesterday's broadcast.
But bigger stuff happened in comics that wasn't in comics.
Hold on, did you just say a bunch of chairs in a common font is a bigger deal? Because I have to agree. It's why we did a
Well,
special
I mean,
episode.
you had a pet theory about it.
It's the Marvel font. It is not a common font. This is my feel. It is the Marvel font, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the Marvel font is very generously massaged impact, which is...
That is fair, yes.
Yeah, which is what you... Yeah. So I get where everybody's coming from. Typeface fetishists don't come for us. Everybody else, it's basically just impact. But you had a theory, about what this was, and it is a comics thing. So
yeah, I mean,
worth repeating.
We're here to talk about pretty much all of X-Manhunt Omega. We'll talk a little bit about Marvel Cosmic Invasion, an upcoming game announced at today's Nintendo Direct. But we're going to kick things off with Batman 158 from Batman Volume 3, released this week. I'm going to show two copies I bought of this. This is the more common. I bought this cute little copy. And please remember that all DC variants have the real cover printed inside, so they always look really cool. But Daddy likes them big, and so because this exists, I had to buy it. Now, folks, you guys can't see this, but it is literally a copy of Batman 158, the size of my torso. It is the size of an IDW Artist Edition. It's board size. So it's bigger than your gallery editions. It's bigger than your library editions. It's, an artist edition. It's a fucker. I will find somewhere to put it. God, I hope. So, it's a big deal. Now, this is perhaps the best pre-ordered comic of the last years. And the only thing that it really rivals it is Absolute Batman. Go figure. But the thing I couldn't help but notice is the day that DC releases what is the absolute home run slam dunk of their calendar year, Batman 158, the issue that once you read it, you know why DC thought they could pull this off. The day that all of the news cycles have hashtag comics lined up to cover Batman Hush.
And keep in mind the other big things. It's Jeph Loeb.
It's Jeph Loeb Jim Lee.
And those are headline attracting names.
Who cut their teeth at Marvel,
right,
and then jumped over to DC, so and then have come back and forth and stuff, right? But so Hush is supposed to come out, and instead Marvel does all of these crazy announcements, kind of knocking Hush out of the conversation spotlight. So it's kind of crazy that Hush 2, the biggest comic of 2025, lost its news cycle to a bunch of chairs.
Yeah, and it didn't feel as relevant even yesterday when we preempted our and it's not just us. I don't know, it didn't feel relevant yesterday is my point. When we decided to do the coverage, I wasn't so much thinking about the fact that we were preempting DC, but as we went into preparing for today's coverage and to actually talk about Hush, it really did sink in for a second that this is because the other part about it is Marvel released X-Manhunt Omega, the end of a mini event, but an event and technically maybe a big deal. If you thought this was a big deal, if you thought the content of this was important, then this would be a big deal. I would argue it's not important, but we'll get to that when we talk about it. But Marvel
sure would have liked it as a trading card set.
Yeah, exactly. Marvel could and would have, I'm sure, liked to have had the comics news cycle for X-Manhunt Omega, if it were any good, and if it were worth talking about. But I can't say compared to Hush that it was at all. And I'm just, I really am curious. Was this a thing where they were like, this whole new thing that we're doing with From the Ashes is going to go great, and it's definitely going great. And then 6 months ago, they start realizing it's not going that great. They're planning for this event. They realize that nobody's really liking it. A few weeks ago, they realize really nobody cares. And were they okay, we can throw this together in 3 weeks. Let's just do it. and then the news cycle will be ours, and DC really cannot have it because Hush is going to come out on the same day as our little event, and let's just steal their thunder. I do wonder. I mean, I like this theory. Who the fuck knows? But I really like the theory, and it did work. I would be so curious to see what a timeline is like where yesterday was Hush 2 day.
I agree, because what I want to do, we're gonna institute a new old fashioned tradition. What worked, what didn't work, and jury's out.
Sure.
I'm gonna say what worked was Marvel stealing the spotlight. What didn't work was 4 months of buildup on Hush 2 that amounted to nothing. And then the follow-up writer is a genius in my opinion, but like 50. So like the guy after this, you're not trending younger. So I just feel like Fraction.
Oh yeah.
So
God damn it. Fraction is like 50. That's the worst.
You're just not trending younger on Batman anytime soon.
Yeah.
And then the no fucking care zone actually is X-Manhunt Omega, which has Forgotten Year written all over it. And I can't wait to get into all of it. But like, so you say you think the marketing steal worked. I agree.
Yes. I mean, it did work. I don't know if they were intended to do it, but it could have been. Who knows? I don't know if they intended to do it to really fuck with Hush.
I don't know. It smacks of locker room bully.
It absolutely does. And this is one of those things where like nobody's ever going to be like, yeah, we did that. Somebody might in like 4 years or when their NDA is up, but nobody, Tom Brevoort's not getting on his stupid fucking Substack to say another stupid thing.
Oh, he's going to change the name to Dom Stack soon because he just wants you to know it's all about being in control.
I was going to bring it up again because he followed up on his stupid Mary Jane statement. And it's interesting. This dovetails into Hush because Spider-Man is Marvel's Batman. Spider-Man is always their best-selling series. Spider-Man is the one that if you were going to do, I mean, what would it be? It would be Brand New Day Part 2, but like Clone Saga 2, we've kind of done before, wouldn't be great. There are a few Spider-Man events that could get a Hush 2 treatment where it would be a big deal for Marvel. And, if you put a Bendis on them or something, I don't know. Marvel would do it with Spider-Man. If Marvel was trying to do Hush 2, the person they would do it with is Spider-Man. And clearly there's sort of some thinking about what Batman is at his core in the same way that there is something about what Spider-Man is at his core. And
you're so right. I only want to enhance how right you are.
Please, because I'm rambling a little. I'm just angry at Tom Brevoort again.
One More Day.
Yeah.
Is the moment that changes Spider-Man forever.
Yeah.
And it is not the most beloved best-selling story of all time, but it is certainly a moment to talk about. And it was ghost written and drawn by Joey Q, who returned to do the sequel One Moment in Time, like only 3 or 4 years later. But that's the problem with Marvel. DC was born of long growth. So DC was tall as a kid and always grew. Marvel was short as a baby and then had a growth spurt. And so Marvel's understanding of everything is instant gratification. We had success with Civil War 2. We had success with Secret War 2. It is just immediately do the next one the next day. But DC doesn't mind doing a sequel literally 25 years later like it's nobody's business. And that really is the nature of Spider-Man versus Batman, because your point stands. They already tried to do what you're saying that DC only just did with the story that came out earlier and the sequel later.
Well, it's funny because Marvel flirts with nostalgia all the time, but they're flirting with nostalgia. DC is picking an event and do you like if we did Civil War in another 10, if we did Civil War 2 in another 10 years rather than doing it less than 5 years after it's more than 5, but not a ton more. It might have been right around 5.
I feel like the original Civil War was like 2006 and the sequel was 2013, 2014.
Okay, so yeah,
Not quite a decade, but definitely the seeds had to be planted within 5 years.
Yeah, and so that's really different than doing it even now, but like even later. And similarly, like Judgment Day and Blood Hunt are not, they're not sequels to each other. They're not related, but they follow a format that Marvel said, "Oh, it works. We're just going to keep doing the format, the summer blockbuster format." And it doesn't actually work. It's one of those things where they'll go, "Oh, but like it did sell. Look at this." And sure, if you guys are happy with those numbers, that's fine. But I bet if you thought outside of your stupid little box, change your expectations around a little bit, change the mission statement, thought differently about the long-term growth of the company, you would maybe do a different style of event and it would be successful, even if when you combine the 50 books that you tell people they have to read to get through the event, the sales weren't quite as high. The loyalty for 20 books that maybe, the 20 books sold a little worse, but people got really into them. Maybe they learned about one new character that they absolutely loved, rather than deciding that they hate all of the Blood Hunters because the book seems stupid. I love the Blood Hunters, but I can't beg random comics person that, like, I have a few friends that, like, they'll read some comics, they'll grab them a few times a month or something, but they're not reading everything the way I do, and I can't sell them on Blood Hunters in a sea of other books where they don't recognize a bunch of the characters. They're not necessarily interested in learning more about them. The book ultimately ends up not being super relevant. So, what was the point of Blood Hunters? But it could have been a big thing if it was only one of a few, and if you really highlighted it. So anyway, this is, I'm pitching ideas for how Marvel could change their events, but they do really play it a bit safe and a bit close to the vest, and then they employ nostalgia like a card out of the deck to hopefully enhance, to hopefully spice things up a little bit. Where, yeah, what you're talking about is DC invests fully in the fact that this is a nostalgic moment, but it's also its own current thing now. Now, is it good or bad? Almost doesn't matter. We'll talk about it, but the question is, like, does this event feel like a thing? And it does. I mean, no matter what, it does feel like a thing, and it does feel, to me, worth checking out. One issue of Batman that is said to be a big deal and is connected to something that was a big deal, that makes a whole lot more sense to me than trying to pick up even 9 issues of an X-Men event that is said to be a big deal, is supposedly a big deal, but I a couple of them I really X Factor and X Force I chose not to catch up on the actual books. I chose only to, because I hadn't super enjoyed them. Go for it.
Let's hold off on those and let's do Batman first.
Yeah, go for it.
So the first thing I want to say is that if you're not familiar with Hush, Hush was 608 to 619, late 2002 to late 2003. That's only a few years before Flashpoint. There's not a lot of room for more Batman after that, before the reset. And then for my money, Hush is the blueprint for Court of Owls. It is dynamically similar. And that's not to say that Scott Snyder didn't do an amazing job creating his own story, but I feel like in some ways, there's just a few too many similarities for how close they are together. Now, Kevo and I spent the day watching Hush, the DC animated movie, in part because while it's only an hour and 20 minutes, my job is like I exist to be support for my team. So I get a lot of questions throughout the day. So I'll admit I did watch Hush piecemeal. But for those of you who aren't familiar, Hush as a narrative is really about a guy named Thomas Elliot, who is a friend of Bruce Wayne's from a young age. And it's so important that his name is Thomas because of what that represents on so many levels. And so Hush is Thomas Wayne, who only resurfaces for that purpose, which is such a Jeph Loeb thing. Jeph Loeb is like on the Enterprise. He is Chekhov, and this is his gun. It is so overwhelming how much Jeph Loeb needs to introduce somebody to make the bad guy. It's fucking crazy. But TK, are you familiar with Hush, the original? Mm-hmm. Okay. Were you aware that in the animated movie, the villain is just Riddler?
Yeah.
Thomas just dies like 20 minutes into the movie and then it's just dead.
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah. I mean, you know, part of the joy of the DC animated universe is there was so much of it that some of it just could be bad. It's sort of, oftentimes it doesn't make sense why things are like, that doesn't make sense. Why would you, I don't even know where you would get to a point in sitting down to develop that film and write it, where you would say, well, what we should do is,
and, you know, and like, I feel like for me, if I were writing a story about my emotional reaction to things, and I were to name a character Tim, everybody should immediately look at my Wikipedia and see lifelong creative partner, brother, you know, personal emotional support life figure. Tim Guru was there for him, and so obviously there's a connection. So Thomas Wayne is, of course, Dr. Thomas Wayne, his father, but then there's also Thomas Wayne Jr., who's Owlman, who is, you know, he was fucking Owlman. Like, I don't know what else to say. He's Owlman. And then he is the Court of Owls guy in New 52. So, like, Thomas is such an important name, and, like, Jeph Loeb did some really shitty things and said some really ugly things in a text chain. You know, people would have thought he sent, war plans. But the thing I do want to say about it is, if those messages were about being gay, I would have never forgiven him. I don't forgive him for saying something against the Asian community ever. And what he said was that it's hard to sell Asian properties on Netflix. And I actually agree with his assessment, but the way he said it is disgusting and problematic and gross. What you should say is audiences are resistant to accepting Asian stories because of a lack of enculturation of Asian communities into the American experience in media, and not make it sound like Asian people's stories are the problem, because the problem is people's resistance to understanding the Asian experience. That's the problem. I do personally actually have a very emotional, intense connection to Jeph Loeb's writing, specifically his Cable. You know, it's what if this guy right there was a war-torn time soldier. So, like, I'm a big fan, and, you know, I got to thank him for it. Of course, his work on Daredevil is like this, like the pinnacle is, you know, like Jeph Loeb's Daredevil is like the statement on the character in so many ways. The first season of the Netflix show owes everything in this world to Daredevil Yellow. So, like, but I feel like we're talking about such a pivotal moment for Batman, for comics, for everything. I have so many feelings about this story, obviously, and thank you for letting me ramble for like 6 minutes.
No,
but
please.
I think when you're talking about a character like Batman, you're talking about an American god of sorts. You're talking about like a Kennedy. You know what I mean? You're talking about part of the experience of growing up and believing in heroes, and then coming to understand that heroes have nuance, and then coming to reject those heroes as fascism, and then accept them as elements of fantasy that we grow into as adults, right? And that's like all heroes. That's presidents. That's because like I think Barack Obama is one of the most fantastic human beings that have ever lived, but I'm sure if I went through his presidency, I'd find a lot of things I don't agree with, even though I agree with his presidency. So, like, you know, there's conversations to be had about the quality of deification of echelon beings. And with Batman, because he's noir, the hard-boiled whiskey comes through in a way that leaves bodies in his wake. There is a sexiness to Thomas Elliot being a body in Bruce's wake, the same way Selena Kyle is. They're part of the same sexual body count, especially because I mean, there is something a little Joe Man Nifty Archives about, Bruce had crazy experiences with, college buddies before Nanda Parat. And, so like, I feel like there is something romantic in the betrayal of Thomas Elliot against Bruce. And there is something inexplicably, Harley, sort of Pamela about it for me.
I have never picked up on that, but I really like it because any place that Bruce Wayne could be a little bit gayer, I think, is for the best. I don't need Bruce Wayne to be gay, and I don't need him to be bisexual even. My thing is, like, I generally feel like if you expand yourself to superhero levels of consciousness, even if you don't have powers, but if you meet Darkseid, if you know that there's a place called Apocalypse, if you understand that, Etrigan exists and these demons exist, your understanding of the world should be such that it doesn't blow your mind that a man could be attracted to another man. And also, you have to be so bored of pedestrian life that just having standard sex should bore you. And so again, it's not that I need him to be gay. It's that, like, it is antithetical to me, that idea that Bruce Wayne doesn't eat pussy, because heroes don't do that. It is actually the opposite. Heroes eat everything because the world that they have experienced is too full of insanity. I mean, they're Cenobites. Like, they've seen too much. They have gone to the ends of the universe. They've gone to the literal hell dimension and back. You can't tell me that anybody comes out of that and is like, I think I just like Missionary with one woman.
Absolutely. It's that moment that Castor Soto goes full my zombies. His brain is never going to be right again.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always like when Bruce Wayne can be a little gay, even if it's before he was Batman and had those experiences. I feel like a man of the intellect that they say that Bruce Wayne had. Oh, this is also where we have to bring this in. Very important diverging topic that will come back in. Nico forced me at gunpoint to watch a show that I said I didn't want to watch at all. And he said, you have to watch it or I won't be your friend anymore. And I just got so scared I watched it. And it stars Caitlin Olsen, who isn't funny at all, and I don't enjoy. So, this was a real, I'm kidding. Nico said he was watching the show. I said, I'll watch it too. I love Caitlin Olsen so much. It is a show called High Potential. It's a great show. You should all watch it. I would love to make sure that it gets a second season.
Oh, definite second season. In fact, great. The only thing dangling is the number of episodes because ABC believes in it so much.
Okay, ABC. So Hulu. Thank you. It's a Hulu thing. Make sure you watch it. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really good. Caitlin Olsen, super charming. Daniel Sunjata, just as such a handsome man. Judy Reyes of Scrubs fame, phenomenal. Looks as good, if not better, than she did 20 years ago.
Aladdin from Once Upon a Time is delicious.
So hot and so charming. Anyway, it's all really great. It's got a great storyline. But so Caitlin Olsen plays a person, a high potential intellect individual, which just means she's really smart, notices a lot of stuff. But she says, it's really a curse because I can't turn my brain off. I can't hold a job because I can't shut up. I can't focus on a task to do it. And ultimately she becomes a consultant for crime solving, for, police, which yes, we hate the police, but these are not like, let's go out and arrest somebody who shoplifted to steal food. This is like, let's solve a weird crime with clues. So it's like
Judy
police.
Reyes coming into the room going,
it's not real police. And so she notices clues and solves crime. She has superpowers is what it is. And so I'm immediately charmed by the show, even though I don't like mystery. And even though I don't like I like Law and Order SVU, not because it's a procedural, but because they say titillating sex things all day long. And it's Chris Maloney doing it. And Mariska Hargitay. I don't discriminate. But I don't.
My husband, BD Wong.
BD Wong. Yep. So I don't love a procedural. This really would not be up my alley. But here's the thing. It's a superhero show. She has superpowers, and she goes into a crime scene and uses her superpowered mind to notice clues. And every episode, she uses her superpowers and saves the day. And I realized that this is what I expect out of the best Batman stories and what I get out of so few, and why I'm not particularly in love with Batman. And here we get Hush 2, and immediately I'm just sort of a little bit bummed because it's just Batman going, oh, look, scenes from my life. Hush is back, which, as if you didn't know, because the story is called Hush 2, this issue should have been a free comic book day thing. Because it's literally saying Hush is back, but you're reading the comic that says, if this had just been Batman 158, huge reveal.
There's been a bunch of chairs and the last one said
yeah. Hush. Exactly. But like this really is he's like the reservoir, that thing from that time, the Joker. Or this can only mean one thing. Hush is back. Yeah, baby, I know Hush is back. I read literally the cover of this. How could anybody pitch this? How is any editor like, yeah, you can print that as a whole issue of comic books? Gorgeous art. Live for a Jim Lee rendered Jokerfish.
And honestly, the pacing's great.
I mean, it is a beautiful cinematic piece, art piece.
It feels like reading the best 1999 comic you've never read before, but you've read too many of them already. So like,
yeah, and also you've read 26 years of comics since 1999 in which we developed better writing and storytelling.
Oh my God, the voodoo that you do so well. Stop. I loved so much. I mean, the moment where he was like, there are 14 Robins and 9 Batgirls. If you can't get anyone, somebody is blocking our signal. I was like, that is so clever. Like, that's so good.
I will say that a lot of the accessory work was really good. Talia showing up. That's a tough one for me because
I am so frustrated that I have to save you. The fact that you almost died tonight just points me, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, she's great. She's very dommy mommy. But so then I got into, when that kicked in, I was like, wait, it took me a second to remember this is Batman 158. And so this is in their primary continuity, because otherwise, again, I'm sort of like, okay, what's happening at the Watchtower right now? Like, everybody can have side adventures and it's still plausible it's happening at the same time. But the DC's problem now, as compared to Marvel, is DC is so willing to say, hey, here's a book that there's no reason to think doesn't take place in mainline continuity, but doesn't take place in mainline continuity. Or like this book, it doesn't feel like it could or should. So it gets a little confusing. And so they're fast and loose. I have been skeptical about, but enjoying for the last year that we've been doing this exercise. But yeah,
I want to engage with that because you're saying that you feel that this kind of has to be a little AU because it's a little too fast and loose. But the thing that I find challenging about that is I have felt that the narrative of the DC universe has been a little too fast and loose and a little out of continuity in and of itself. When something happens like Gay, Betsy, and Rachel, it asks us to consider, over in X-Men, it asks us to consider what we know about characters and can we modernize the idea of a character. But we have been running the 3 Jokers narrative for 6 years. Do you really think that we can? I mean, the Joker, the Man Who Laughed, or whatever the fuck that 12-issue book that I really enjoyed.
No. Okay. Yeah,
I super enjoyed that 12-issue book. I think it was one of the Jameses. I think had a really great time with it. Really enjoyed the book, but glad it was only 12 issues and it ended. Although I think it had a what was that? Night Terrors crossover. But I really do feel like the state of Joker is you're fighting a fear god. And so I don't know, killing a couple of him might be convenient.
And I want to be clear, my thing is more that I will read a book and start to get confused. And I'll forget, and this is a great example because this is a sort of unique example. This is Batman 158, but this is Hush 2. So this could have been published as Hush 2, and then I'd be really confused. But
Or
because
if you want to read it literally, it's Hatoosh.
Hatoosh. But because it's Batman 158, I do sort of go with the idea that it is obviously in continuity. But there are things like I don't know. Since I'm new to it, I don't know when the last time Talia showed up and how she shows up. So that was I'm relatively certain from what I have time to research that it's not that often, it's not that much. So A, that makes it special, but B, it is one of those things that feels like, well, this is off. This isn't how things typically go. And then I know Dick can be there again. Like nothing happens where I'm like, this breaks continuity entirely. I know Dick can be there, but Dick is with the Titans right now where I'm reading. And again, people can have parallel adventures, so it's not completely implausible, but the vibe starts to feel like, well, is this a different universe where Dick hangs out more? Or is this just an issue? I know. I knew what I was doing.
Oh, did you let the dick hang out?
I let the dick hang out. Or is this, a just a parallel storyline where Nightwing happens to be there? Both things are acceptable, and neither is implausible. But as somebody who's new to DC and also who is really recognizing that DC continuity is just less stable than Marvel's, sometimes when we have these moments, it just feels a little chaotic as a reader. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't even reduce a letter grade or anything. It's just one of those things that makes me sort of think, I understand why they keep trying to destroy the entire universe so they can reset it and start clean. I think it's very funny that they can't keep it up, but yeah, I don't know. DC is always so tempted to introduce something that can't be continuity. And yet, as I've told you, I'm watching Harley Quinn lately, which is so funny and so great. And so many people are playing to their type and doing the things that they do in any, Batman is still a detective. He's still Gotham's champion. But the story is focused on Harley, so it is very AU and it's comedy focused, it's Harley focused, it's sapphic.
Well, and it's got my Pammy in it, right?
Oh yeah, big time. Voiced by the incomparable Lake Bell, who I just love so much. Are you fucking kidding me with that face right now that just happened on my television screen? What? I'm gonna say something, and Kevo's gonna explain it, and you're gonna break your screen before he finishes the explanation. But let me just tell you, Lake Bell is no Scarlett Johansson.
Because of What If? Who cares?
I have a worse one.
She's the new Black Widow.
Yeah, I know. She does every voice ever. Mine, I mean her.
Yeah.
Mine is so much worse. Mine is so much crueler. I still love her so much. But the first time I saw her, I said to myself, that's no Lisa E. Yeah, I still love her though. So I don't want to wipe that face off your face. You see it though, don't you?
She's also now a less pretty Philippa Sue, but anyway.
Yeah. But
No,
I do
but
love her very much.
Yeah, she is spectacular. I was just being sassy.
No, I know you're being funny, and I am cackling. She's great as Harley, or she's great as Ivy. The show is really good. Again, it feels like it's so core elements DC standard, but it is very clearly an AU. And that's just like every time there's so many things with them where I'm like, okay, this is so standard. Batman's here. There's a Robin here. Oh, even in this timeline, Robin has grown up and become Dick Grayson being Nightwing, and we have a different person being Robin. I'm talking about something like Dark Age. Like everything is so core what you expect from the DC universe in Dark Age, but it's also different, and DC just loves to do that. I love that they do it. I'm having 85% fun with it, but that 10 to 15% where it's confusing and not fun feels significant, and it feels like it could really crack and be bigger problems as time goes on with other stuff, with other ideas, with their next big universe reset. Who knows what's going to happen when All In and Absolute resolve themselves.
I heard when Paul Lind and Absolute resolve.
Yeah, that's who's playing Dark Side.
I'm saying is I am Dark Side.
Yeah,
and
I actually think go for it.
Square.
That with like a kind of Cloris Leachman or what's her name, Carol Channing as Granny Goodness. I mean, come on.
Okay, I am criminally obsessed with this.
Yeah.
As long as we get some sort of oh my god, Catherine Fox as Amanda
Debbie
Waller.
Allen. This movie is writing itself, and it's really good. You guys are
This
lucky.
movie is really good.
Yeah.
It's actually called Golden Age Girls. So I am obsessed. Here's what I do want to say about Batman Hush 2. I have a couple of pages that I want to highlight for those of you watching. We did some definite choice things with physically torturing Joker before, spoiler alert, murdering him? Okay, here again, I am fine with killing Joker because there's 3. But here's where I have a question for everyone. The DC universe is a complex multiverse where we've been told that there is kind of almost like a new prime planet. Like the Absolute verse seems different, even though each Absolute book is its own universe, kind of. I wonder if the state of the DC verse will forever be multiversal, with a central planet that a version of Superman, a version of Superboy, a version of Wonder Woman can live on, but there can also be an alternate on there for a time. I wonder if the general state of the DC universe is going to become the 1990s American Mall, with Forever Supergirl right next to JC Superman's, and over across the hall is Lord and Batman. And I really wonder if we're going to start to see what Marvel manufactured with Secret Wars become the identity of the DC universe, with things like Batman's Hush making such definitive choices for the DC universe that the idea of what is the status quo of stability for DC this whole time can no longer be maintained without the alternate choice that you're providing as you know, a reasonable option.
I like it because they can't stop doing it.
Yeah.
I like it as a solution for the fact that they cannot stop doing AUs and like just little ones. But it's constant. But I like that has to be months of structure and pitching, because I wouldn't like it if it were a battle world. Because that the center cannot hold on that. It can't be forever. So immediately I'm saying, okay, is this a 5-year plan? Is this a 10-year plan? I know how long 52 lasted. I know how long New 52 lasted. So I don't think these are long for this world.
Vertigo lasted longer.
There you go. So I'm already looking ahead. But if you say to me, no, and like this is, I wished Marvel would do this forever. Marvel is much more cognizant, their characters are much more cognizant of their multiverse, and we have things like Exiles, and the X-Men will even be like, oh yeah, we know the Exiles, but nobody gives, like, they'll go about their lives for decades worth of books and never talk about the fact that some of them have literally left to go explore the multiverse, and the multiverse is still out there, and some of their friends are still out there exploring the multiverse. Aren't you ever curious? Aren't there more incursions? Aren't there more like interactions with the when you say incursions in Marvel, you fuck up a whole thing. But aren't there more interactions with the multiverse? Like, isn't there more to see?
Speaking of, have you seen this new motherfucking Spider-Man that I think it's Vecchio created for Spider-Verse versus Venomverse, where he is just like fashion. Oh my god!
No.
You reach a point where it's exactly what you're saying. You reach a point where you say, "Oh, multiversity. How much further can you explore?" But no, you're right. By taking a step, yeah, right. How fucking sexy is that?
The emissary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we haven't done Spider-Man catch-up in a while, so let's bookmark that, and then we should talk about this. Yeah, this is very cool. Anyway,
just that idea that there's always room to take a step back and approach multiversal explicit ideas, not implicit like Marvel did cinematically for 5 years, but
right.
Explicit, and say, oh, Stargirl is over in that universe while that universe is Raven is in this world.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, what about the multiversal watchtower? You know what I mean? Like, where they say we can't keep doing this. We've got to organize at the level that we did in After Absolute Power, but for the entire multiverse. And then that way, you can just sort of say like, we go to and I would number them, and I know they do, but we go to Earth 3. Here's this storyline. We go to Earth 259. Here's this storyline, and sort of find a way to acknowledge. Like I keep thinking about Dark Age, and I keep thinking about, was it Boy Wonder? Was that the one that had that really gorgeous art?
Yeah, Absolute. Oh no, it was All-Star Batman and Robin by Mark Waid.
No, well, that's also fantastic, but
I'm so sorry. No, yeah, you're right. The Robin series, Boy Wonder. You're absolutely
it was Boy Wonder.
right.
Okay, yeah. Dark Age and Boy Wonder are two that I think about where I'm just like, they're so stylized and they're so specific, and they're not anything like it's a pocket universe even. Like, it's so tiny that Boy Wonder is just a high art concept. Sort of what if, like, just imagine Robin doing this, but what if it was more like that storyline happens and Robin, and Damian goes to witness it, or in some capacity goes, I saw it. Like, this is in our annals. This is in the Watchtower forever. The Guardians of Oa gave us power, data storage, and now everything in the multiverse will be cataloged. And just some way for DC to acknowledge, we cannot stop doing this. We cannot stop having multiverse. Like, we can't stop having AU stories, but we also acknowledge that people would like to know what one Batman that is the definitive Batman is doing.
You know what? On that exact note, I really want to say, to pull Kevo in for half a second.
Love it.
He had been very unaware of who Damian is as like an actual character in a lot of ways. And so when he heard that Damian was somewhere between a child on Abbott Elementary and also the producer for Real Sex 18, he was a little thrown off in Hush, because at one point he literally says, "Father, considering your history, I do not want a brother. I would ask that you use protection." And like, he's literally 9 in the scene.
He definitely uses the phrase carnal satisfaction, I believe, and that was when I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, I had any concept of Damian from the last few years, but that was very surprising. Yes,
and it's the fact that exactly what you're saying, TK. This dichotomy of understanding of complex self allows for singular character understanding of complexity to exist, because that really is Damian. If it weren't for the idea that we're able to have Kid Superboy in the pages of Legion in the 70s and 80s, and then have Superman, Clark Kent, like literally the definition of a big, powerful, masculine man as our figurehead throughout the DC universe, we would struggle to allow someone like Damian to exist in that world of Abbott and adulthood. But the fact that the multiversity of DC is the hallmark of its success is what allows for the complexity of singular character.
To just drive the metaphor home, though, even specifically with something that we are seeing, Abbott versus Sunny.
Yeah, those
are both reality, but it's the type of reality that you subscribe to. Yep.
And I mean, it really does speak to the fact that like the lens does matter. And it's funny because I think Marvel handles the structure of their multiverse better and then doesn't use it at all. DC handles theirs terribly, but writes AU stories that will make you weep. I can't, like, the Exiles, because of the team, not because of the AU that they were visiting, occasionally made me weep. And from time to time, Spider-Verse has been really cool because of the idea, but so rarely because of the writing. And yeah, I mean, DC just, again, I keep pointing to Dark Age and Boy Wonder, but they're just two really good examples. And then Zatanna bringing down the house, which I think ultimately was not in continuity either. There are just these great examples of just these little flights of fancy that DC does, and I love that they do them, but they become disenfranchised to. I'm not even a casual reader. I don't think. I'm just not a storied reader. I don't have a long history with this stuff, so I'm collecting as best I can, but I'm still trying to get a hold of the main continuity stuff. So pulling in stuff that I can't guarantee is going to come back into play is not really feasible for me. And this can be, there are ways to address this. And I think there's ways to do it that, they're not hacks. It's not hacking something together so that it technically works. It is figuring out how to do the thing that you do best in a way that is commercially / publishing system viable. And I want that for both companies. I want them to keep up their strengths and to shore up their weaknesses.
It's so important because you used both companies as the conversation piece. And I feel like we are at a point where they want to work together, but they're sort of afraid to because they have such dichotomous interactions.
Well, and it's so funny because it's cell phone companies aren't competing. This isn't real competition. They're providing the exact same thing. It truly, you as a person, it doesn't matter if you're on AT&T or Verizon. And if you go to one, somebody else is at the same time going to the other. Nobody is making massive switches. Nobody is saying,
my bill had this happen. What did your bill have? Ooh, I'm going to start buying your bill.
Yeah. We don't do that. I mean, it's just, there's so little choice. And also even, you're on Fi, I'm on T-Mobile right now, but I've been on services that use T-Mobile's network. But Fi is just using T-Mobile's network. So you're on T-Mobile. There's so few cell phone companies. There are even fewer major comic book publishers. There's tons of indie, smaller, different thing. But when you're talking about big blockbuster comics, you literally have two options, and nobody is massively switching between both. They read one, they read the other. Some people read them both to a certain degree. Neither of them is gaining huge new fan bases. Neither one of them is stealing new fan bases. This is not the Cold War. This is not if Pepsi and Coke work together, Pepsi could steal Coke's formula, and then that's the ball game for Coke. If these two companies spent every day collaborating and publishing various amalgam books together just on an initiative, but at the same time did exactly what they were doing now, they would just make more money. They would both just make more money.
I'm okay. So preface. First of all, I think TK is usually right, except when he's being super negative, then I think he's mostly right.
Everybody not watch the coverage that we just did of the chairs.
No, I mean you're still right about the chairs.
I'm just kidding.
But separately, if they joint published amalgam books.
I say amalgam because that's what they've done, but it can be whatever the initiative is.
No,
yeah. I mean, and it really makes you start to wonder, can they not share the process of how their writers' rooms work because they're scared about even lending that? But again, my question becomes if DC saw every Marvel publishing process and every secret sauce to how they get a book out, it still would not change. People would still not go, DC's publishing books like Marvel, I'm going over there.
For a great period of time, there was a Marvel editor married to a DC editor. The special sauce is already in the sheets.
Right, exactly. And it's also like, I mean, Jim Lee is why I'm an X-Men fan. And
Jeph Loeb is why I'm an X-Force fan and a Batman fan.
Right, and now we're reading that. Yeah, so, I mean, like, everybody works at both companies. Vita Ayala wrote one of my favorite New Mutants runs, now is never at Marvel and is completely at DC. I mean, like, everybody works there. So I just, for the life of me, I cannot imagine why...
We were wise and we'd never compromise.
I can't begin to imagine what is holding them back. I mean, and I'm sure Tom Brevoort's going to get on his Substack and explain why I'm the asshole for saying it. But I hope
that's his next step, just singling out fans.
Yeah, so, yeah, go for it. Me specifically, I'd take it. That badge of honor.
Tom, all you can do is make me more famous by coming for how smart I am. I am waiting for it. Please.
I beggeth. I want my name out there.
I just want to have a conversation with this really cool dude.
I can't imagine why at this point, because again, and also to take it all the way back to what we were talking about, it gives the multiverse is a very local multiverse. Like everything, when
so local, Marvel, you would put plants in it in an issue of NYX.
That's the one. When Marvel wanted to be like, they were looking for Raboom Alal. This was during Time Runs Out and getting ready for Secret Wars. They were like, they've gone to the edges of the universe, nothing resembling anything they've ever seen before. And what they get to is a fake DC universe. They get to a universe that's just DC characters, which is hilarious because the first thing I thought was, oh, look, it's a version of Squadron Supreme, who are also just DC characters. But it's the funniest thing in the world that they're like, they've never been to a place like this before. Oh, it's just Dr. Fate. Okay. And that was cute and funny, but the point is, like, the DC's multiverse is just Batman's and Marvel's multiverse is just Spider-Man's. And if both companies join forces and we're like, the multiverse includes, if you go far enough, if Flash races far enough, he gets to a Marvel universe. So the multiverse is actually quite expansive and really, really different. As opposed to, it's just you go to a different universe and there's just a Batman.
And I think part of that has to do with the idea that I was talking about a little bit earlier, where, we sort of hit a point where these heroes grow into obscurity and die. And what is Batman? What is Spider-Man? The idea that guys like Tom Brevoort are saying that Spider-Man can never grow older. And the idea that guys like Jeph Loeb, who, again, I have very positive feelings for, despite the fact that he felt that it was appropriate to call people faggots and Teen Wolf. I really feel like this is a guy who is ultimately on the side of Batman is right. But, like, I said earlier today to Kevo that I think that Will is Batman and Jack is Joker. And there is a love story between these two characters that is not implicit on the page, but I loved Batman 158 until the last page, where Batman just goes, oh, the only person who knows me this well could kill the Joker and break into the Batcave must be Thomas Elliot. It must be Hush. He's back.
Yeah. I mean, that is how I felt. And it's not even like, it really is just the concept of that, like, speech and reveal. Yeah, it would have made a lot more sense. Like, you could have even kept the panels as they were and just wrote something. Like, it would have made sense to start the dialogue with, well, obviously he's back.
What if the issue started with, I know Hush is back.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel it in my bone.
Yeah, here's my reflection on why that means anything.
Dude, you are. I know you say all the time you have not read enough Batman to consider yourself a true Batman fan. But all of your opinions are sourced from the best material. You really speak like someone with that reading.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's so, I mean, and in this case, I don't even feel like it's my Batman knowledge. It's just what's good writing, and also what's good editing and good publishing. You guys don't have to send these. I don't know what's going on. I shouldn't say that because I don't know what your industry is like, but I wouldn't send these issues out like this. This is me and Nico riffing. We haven't even talked about this at all. So like these ideas are coming off the top of my head right now, but I wouldn't send this issue out like this. I would not accept this script. And I feel like you would get these notes from a high school creative writing class saying like, hey, I love this sequel to your last short story about your friend's friend or your main character's friend who became a killer. But because the story is called My Friend's Friend Who Became a Killer Part 2, the reveal at the end of chapter 1 that the friend's friend who became a killer is back is not a great reveal. So I would do it differently. I'd start the chapter with that because we already know it's coming. And then I would spend the time doing some meditation on what this means for the character, because that's always important and people always love that. And they want to know who this character is. And insanely, even though Batman has the most appearances of any comic book character in the history of comic book characters in history, people are still like, yeah, I want to know more. I want to know more about his internal thoughts. I want to know where he's coming from. I want to know what's in his heart. I want to know his background. I want to know how he feels about his friends. You had all that time to do that. And instead it's just like, it could only be the one person, the guy, the man, the myth, the legend. And it's just these like a little boxes, like two-word boxes of text in 18 panels that it's just a build up to say, Hush is back. Oh, okay. Fucking couldn't have told you that from H2SH. So, you know, I mean, I just don't think that's good writing. Jim Muted.
No, Jim Muted was the guy who did the art. He also did that amazing run with Quaklama. No, I completely agree with you. And that's even part of where that stupid Hush preview was sort of like, it's called the Hush 2 preview, and the only thing it does is establish that Hush is back. What? Like, I don't know. I don't think this is Thomas Elliott. I hope it's Thomas Wayne Jr. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I hate Arnie Stark. But if you wrote Arnie Stark, I would love him. It's this terrible thing where like
Arno,
yeah, thank you. Arno
okay.
Stark,
Arnie Roth. Yeah.
So sorry.
Let's combine those two.
Didn't mean to combine obscure characters that people weirdly fetishize. My apologies. I feel like you could write 1,000 versions of things that would make me love them. And there are things that are just so good. Like, yeah, there are bad issues of Exiles, but I don't think there are bad runs of Exiles. I can literally name everyone who's written one, and they're all good. The Malibu run might be weird, but that's actually called All New Exiles, and I'm not going to deal with it. But, like, your run on Exiles would be Winnick-esque. But then there are even books that I don't tend to like that I would appreciate your run on. I don't think that Hush 2 is a bad idea, but I feel like if we find out that Hush 2 is Thomas Elliott, unless the second issue starts with, these are all of the tiny little shredded pieces of Thomas Elliott's body, and there is no chance his soul survived either. It got eaten. Okay, fine. Then I would be fine with Thomas Elliott being Hush 2, I guess. But otherwise, I'm hoping for somebody with your ideas, somebody who's coming from a less published counterculture perspective, providing a look at something that I already feel really familiar about. Otherwise, I don't know. I give this issue a B+ because the actual truth is, between the art and the pacing and the storytelling, the issue is masterful. The actual -7 is the hype. And yeah, Jeff, some of that dialogue definitely reads like you are excited to do a little dance, make a little love, and get down tonight. And I really hope for your sake that you eventually advance your storytelling methods beyond the fact that there's a new bartender at Cheers named Sam. Because some of that dialogue was in fact so old that Jesus said, "Fuck, I don't want to be near that. That's old." So,
yeah, I think I'm going to go a little lower and say B. And again, comics are a group effort. In a vacuum, not considering the fact that books are edited, this might get a B+. But again, like this is, I'm taking to task. If you are charged with editing shit, I don't know. I feel like I'm so old school saying it because it now feels like editors are talent managers, not editors. And you sometimes hear people who work in editorial for the big two talk about it that way. But I just, some of this stuff, it's not bad for a first draft. Like I said, like the idea of this dramatic buildup and it's hush. I really get why you would do that. I 100% why you would get that. I would write that. But I've done a lot of editing as well. And when I received that, I would say, this is so good. But literally, it's change a couple things. It's literally move it's hush to the beginning and then just add a little more at the end to recontextualize this monologue that you have. I'm not saying you have to rewrite your whole thing, but this is what editorial does. It does not quite work. And I just see a lot of stuff from Marvel where I really notice it, but that's because I know more about Marvel books and I know more about Marvel writers and Marvel editorial, but this is a case where I noticed it again. And I just think with that sharpness and saying, and again, like I get it. I imagine people don't say to Jeph Loeb, no, you have to rewrite this, but that's why it's publishing and it's not script writing for movies, which is a different thing. A producer will come in and tell you have to rewrite it, and that's for different reasons. I don't know. We're just starting to see, it feels to me like we're starting to see the power of the editor in comics really wane. And I would like to see it wane like Bruce and get more powerful and be able to do things that a normal man shouldn't be able to do.
I love that you just said that you think that Tom Brevoort should be the most powerful man in comics. I really agree with you. I'm so glad.
Okay, broadcast over. Goodbye. I hate everything.
That said, let's hop things over to Marvel where... okay. X-Manhunt. This crossover occupied approximately 6 pages of any issue it was in, and they were never the 6 best pages. Mm-hmm. And then you get this finale that, I don't know, was this finale written first and there were really cool drafts of all of the issues leading up to it that involved any of the characters that appear in the finale?
Yeah.
And I understand that the amazing writer of Storm wrote this and Storm, but there was literally no through line between Storm and this. No. The X-Men issues where the X-Men fight Storm, then it's X-Men, and then they fight the fucking X-Force team. Beyond my understanding, Extraordinary X-Men is literally 2 pages. There are Marvel Omnibus editions from the that reference issues from the 1980s that will contain 2, 3, 4 pages of an entire issue. I think that's generous in this case. I would have Bobby come in riding a dick and just have him be like, we're in the crossover. And that would be the entire end of the inclusion.
Yep.
I am really, truly giving this crossover a C-, despite thinking that everybody involved in it is somewhere around a B+.
I definitely, I think C-. This was a joint effort between Maria Iadelli and Gail Simone, 2 writers who are eminently talented and are doing work that I'm not doing. I don't want this is like drag queens. I am not saying you're bad at your craft. Like when they fail at challenges, I'm never like, yeah, it's because she sucks. I will say the thing that I said is that girl wasn't competitive this week. It wasn't a competitive bring to the competition. And when I say that, I don't mean like by my judgment. I mean, the judges said that she didn't do well, or like I didn't laugh at the joke. But again, these people are doing work that I'm not doing. I'm not here to say they're not good at their jobs. I'm not here to say I could do it better. I'm not here to say they should never work again. Nothing like that. Gail Simone is somebody who I have loved in comics for so long. I am just not connecting with her on this run. I am not connecting with her ideas, and I despise saying it because I also know that I don't think she's watching this podcast in particular, but I don't post about it on Blue Sky because I do know that she reads, and I would never tag her. That's just so gross, guys. Don't ever do that. But like, she comes across stuff that is about her X-Men run is about Uncanny. I'm sure she searches for Uncanny, and I would, if I were her friend, I would say don't do that. But like, whatever, I get why artists do that, but I would hate for her to see even what I'm saying. That's how much I respect and adore her. I'm not connecting with this run at all. I'm not connecting at all with how she sees this team, with how she sees this team interacting with other teams. It's just I really am not, I'm not connecting with her. And similarly, I'm really not connecting with Murewa Ayodele. I did not connect with him on this issue. I think overall the Storm run, to me, I'm not connecting with as much. And that one is a little easier to say, like, it's not the most for me. It's not really, there's probably a lot of context that I'm not getting. And I try to look at really smart, talented, people of color that are in fandom. Again, mostly like people that I follow on Blue Sky. And I do see confirmation of what I'm feeling and similarly mixed reactions. Like, I do see people, people of color who say that this is just a fantastic run. She's doing great, or he's doing great. When I said she, I meant Storm. And this is just a great run. But I do see a lot of people saying, like, again, this is the trap with Storm is always because she is Marvel, like, she is the first lady of blackness at Marvel. She is a goddess. She is a black woman that is the most powerful. And through sort of a series of just happens to, like, Claremont wrote her as just really awesome, and then nobody wanted to deviate from that path, so she kept getting written as awesome and just kind of the coolest kid at your high school, literally the coolest student at Xavier's, technically not a student, but you know what I'm saying. And then they kept graduating her, and the awesomeness started to be like how we talk about divinity, like it was godlike awesomeness. And that still for a lot of the time was cool because it was like, yeah, she has weather-based powers. She and then she married T'Challa, so she became a queen and a goddess. And it's very difficult to not make Storm the biggest personality, most powerful, most untouchable person in the room. It's always fun when there's a Beyonce vibe, but the thing we all know about Beyonce is, like, we're not getting any closer. Like, she will not be revealing her most inner moments to us. And even when we get things like lemonading, like when we get indications that maybe there's been infidelity in her marriage, it's played for cinematic effects and for the story of the untouchable goddess whose inner monologue we will never know. With Storm, the point of comics is like there's literally narrative balloons. Like, we can literally get her inner monologue. And so when you have what Murewa Ayodele is doing is something that so many people have done, which is just make her so OP, so untouchable, that even the conflict it feels like Storm would have an easier time with what Jean Grey is taking on, because people just consider Storm to be so powerful that, like, even though the Phoenix Force is a fundamental force of the universe in the body of this woman that therefore can manipulate fundamental forces, somehow Storm is just more powerful. And that's cool. Storm can be more powerful. I don't care about that. But, like, weather manipulation doesn't trump fundamental force of the universe. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you have to figure out what you're doing. Jean is struggling a lot more than Storm. And I just can't really imagine why. So all of that is to say, God, what a long monologue for saying that I'm just not connecting with how these two writers see everything. And it really wrapped up here. To your point, this feels like it maybe even was in somebody's notes. Like, is this in Ewing or Gillen's notes for the end of for the fall of Krakoa? Like, this feels like it's supposed to take place on Mykonos, the island that Emma bought where they hold the Hellfire Gala. And instead it's in like Reykjavik, or it's in Iceland. It's like outside of Iceland, which is just so weird. But it really feels like this is the actual end of Krakoa. This is really what needed to be said at the end of Krakoa. And it happening here after a year of a lot of misses, after the end of a crossover event that is, on the whole, kind of a miss. I don't know. I thought about kind of the other side of it. Like, what if this had been not like, take the best parts of Fall of the House of X and write them in this style of event. So rather than doing all the books that we did and all the stuff that we did, it was just 9 issues in various books, and that's how we ended Krakoa. And we eventually got to this point. I don't know. I just like Emma weeping and calling Charles a bastard and saying good luck with your retirement,
and then kissing him on the cheek so sweetly, like some kind of I don't know who. At the end of Krakoa, I would have just barely bought it because of the sentimentality of the end of the dream right then. After a year where Emma has been holed up in an apartment just making fun of Kitty Pryde whenever they go to the gym together, it feels less sexy emotionally. Like, there's just no engagement for me there. You know, I really did wind up feeling like there was a little bit of difficulty with this crossover. Now, X-Manhunt runs through Uncanny 11, NYX 9, Storm 6, X-Men 13, X-Factor 8, Exceptional X-Men 7-ish in the most intangible of ways, and that is a Kitty Pryde joke. Actually calling her Kitty Pryde is the joke. What's up, Kate? X-Force number 9 and X-Manhunt Omega. All of those oscillate somewhere between volume 2 and volume like 207, because that's what it's at. Although it's interesting that NYX is only at volume 2. It's that the second volume of NYX was a miniseries with a subtitle. There's been a one-shot, but, really unique. The creators on this are many, plentiful, incredible, and really, really a special team. I did catch up for these issues, actually. It turned out I was behind on NYX, X-Factor, and X-Force. So I caught up.
Yeah, I caught up on NYX because that one actually does interest me, but I specifically... X-Force and X-Factor were the two where I was like, I don't like these. And I'm curious to see what happens in terms of following the crossover if I were not to read 2 of them. I'm curious what, other people's experiences might look like. Because I tend to read everything and I tend to catch up. But I know we have a lot of people, especially now, and this happened during Krakoa a lot too, where people said like, no, I don't want to read New Mutants. No, I don't want to read this book. So, I'm just not reading them. And with the big change in the status quo after Fall of the House of X, I did think it was a good time to pick some books and be like, okay, I'll read a few of them. And if I don't like them, I'm not going to keep up with them. I'll wait till they're on Marvel Unlimited. It's not that I won't ever read them, but I'm not going to pay for them. I'm not going to keep doing this. Especially because I think you're lying about these being ongoings. And what the fuck? I was right. We were right. You were lying. These are all ending after 10 issues. And
the numbering is garbage because like Storm had that one shot and then she had another one shot, and there have been some kind of questionable inclusions across the board. I'm with you. I feel like I don't know. I will say that I think X-Force is actually a great book. against my will, against my wishes, and against my better judgment. In fact, as I'm reading it, I'm like, this is kind of problematic. Why does it work for me? Oh, because they're saying if you're okay with this, you're problematic.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think my thing with X-Force, I don't think you're wrong, but the moment where Charles is like, everybody should, or maybe Cyclops says it, somebody's like, everybody should feel free to live your dreams, whether it's, being hot in Manhattan, whether it's being a celebrity mutant, and he's like, when it gets to X-Force, he's like, or just being X-Force. And it's just, my thing about the book is like, I guess they're just being I don't get the point of it. It's not a bad book.
They're the X factor, but you can't say just having that X factor if you're X-Force, because then what is X factor going to have? Money?
Yeah, exactly. And it also feels like it's two separate books. Forge's Wild Adventures, and then Please Don't Ever Stop Doing Betsy and Rachel, because that could mean that some idiot writes them out. And then what part of what I didn't like about it was suddenly Sage is like, oh, my best friend, Charles Xavier, the man who took me from being a child soldier and made me into a child spy. Gotta help that guy out. He's my favorite person ever.
Hold on. So this is actually a place you and I have a very, very, very different relationship with the X-Men.
Yeah.
Period. If you ask me if there is one person who truly represents Xavier's dream, and I could only have one X-Man for the rest of my fucking life, it'd be Rogue. Without a question.
Yeah.
There is no one.
Yeah.
And I could, and it's so cool that this generation of writers completely agrees with me, because during Krakoa, it was definitely Scott, and I don't get that at all.
No, I don't think it was. I actually really don't think it was. I just don't think until we got to Fall, until we got to that moment that made you cry in Hellfire Gala 3, I don't think anybody had gotten around to writing, because Rogue was in Excalibur the whole time.
Well, and I mean, it's such a moment that references her conversations with I'm such an idiot. It's such a moment that references her conversations with Xavier during New Mutants, during the Proteus saga.
Yeah.
It is not Proteus. I'm so sorry. During the Legion saga, because clearly, so Claremont would write his plots 50 issues at a time, and when he would realize that he lost something by killing someone, he would create a new version of them 50 issues later. So every 50 issues there's an unstoppable psychic, there's a metamorph, there's a super illusionist, whatever. But I don't know, I think we're in a weird position, because so TK, period, wholesale, I appreciate what you're saying, because I agree with how it's presented, but my personal fan canon is a little different. And who do you feel is what they're making Rogue, if you feel anyone is capable of carrying that banner?
I mean, I think you have the best case. It's not something I've thought about. I mean, you made the case last year. You made the case 2 years ago now, because that Hellfire Gala was 2 summers ago. But I wasn't really thinking about it. What?
Rachel and Alex, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
2 summers ago.
But you are correct, and the evidence has borne out in ways that I don't actually know that I could put up a good contender. Legacy is literally about this. I mean, the promise when Rogue shows up is, I'll fix your powers. I will don't be a villain anymore. Hang out with us, and I will train you. And
you're saying it too good.
I know. And then he fucking does. And it takes so long, but by Legacy is Charles's book first, and then it becomes Rogue. It transitions into becoming Rogue's book. In that time, Rogue gets control of her powers, which she has had ever since. And she takes on the name Legacy. I mean, it feels like something beyond even a particular writer, but Marvel editorial and publishing really had the same idea that you had. I definitely don't think it's Scott. I think that Scott is his son. And I think Jean is his daughter, and I think they are having incestuous sex when they're married. But that's a whole other thing. I'm just saying.
Can I tell you that I think the absolute hottest sex in the entire Marvel Universe period, but both people would understand it's about the physicality of their body, is Rachel pegging Akihiro.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely 100% correct. And I think if Marvel were cooler, you could have that.
I mean, 1,000%. That's just Mike DeMarco railing Alan King. That is like quite literally the dream. I don't even know what to tell anybody.
But you know, it's definitely not Scott. I mean, I don't think it's Jean. Because with Jean, it's not an X-Man thing. It's a astral like Jean is his astral plane version of what you're talking about with Rogue. Like, I promise you, I can heal your mind. It's not Logan because he didn't do it. He didn't help Logan at all. He consistently made things worse. And Logan just one day got his memories back. Charles didn't help with that. Then that was his promise to Logan. Like,
let's just say what it was. It was actually Wanda.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Precisely. Which, you know, that could be its own fun. Like Wanda taking on a Professor X role and being like,
you mean it's Strange Academy?
I mean, I would take it anywhere, but like the only reason I wouldn't do Strange Academy is because those kids don't have good problems. We stopped giving kids good problems. We stopped giving people that attend institutions good problems. But like, and Steve Orlando, you're not even doing this in Wanda's book, but like going to the Logans of the world, going to the people who are like bearing ridiculous burdens and being like, I can use my powers to warp reality to fix your problem. It'll probably be even sloppier than the problem you have, but I can do it. Okay, so I mean, like, it's not Storm because Storm was good, but some people I know would argue that it was because he gave her a place to be for so long. You know, it's like it's Storm because Storm said, I'm going to look at everything Charles Xavier does and do the opposite, and that let her go in a really good direction. But no, I mean, I don't want to belabor this point, but I really think you are correct.
No, please belabor any point where you feel I am correct.
Yeah. I will probably sit and try and make a list and roll people out, but I don't think I'll come up with anybody better than Rogue. And you know, I said the thing about Sage very facetiously because it's also like the idea that he went and found her is canon, and everything else is loose canon because any writer who wants to, you're frozen, but I'm going to keep talking. Any writer who wants to can go in and do more with like that storyline was introduced, I think, over 20 years ago at this point. So if a writer wants to go in and be like, no, Charles was actually really kind and took care of Sage and didn't use her as a weapon, that would be much more, we would be much more able to believe that than saying, well, no, some guy who was probably a pervert 20 years ago who wrote that storyline said it, so it's unbreakable canon and it's just what happened. It's that same way. We just don't really, technically Laura was a prostitute, but we're just kind of not gonna do it because it's gross and weird.
Well, are you going to tell me that you don't think that even one time Wolverine went undercover as a prostitute? Are you going to lie to me and tell me that you don't think one time Elektra or Daredevil went undercover as a prostitute? The idea that we are so sacrosanct about what is on paper fills me with an anger that would literally allow me to punch a car to death. Well, I can't even begin to tell you. Because we've seen the one time Laura did that mission, we immediately call her a whore. But
well, no, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about in NYX.
NYX, the one time we've seen it on panel. But are you telling me? Because to me, that is a Laura mission. That is Laura fulfilling a role exactly as Logan.
Yeah, I really like that. I don't think that was the intention.
No, and that's because Josh Middleton and Joe Quesada had a.
You froze again.
A Nora 2025 world where I'm not going to sit around and let people treat sex workers like second-class citizens when the only second-class citizens I really see are working in government. So I'm here to say that moment of Laura being a sex worker is just us being brave enough to give Laura that story because she's so strong. We see her come out the other side. But Matt, Elektra, James, Bucky, when any of them or Natasha, when any of them were put into sex work, it fucked them up. So we didn't get to see that story. But dude, I love that you brought that up, because part of what I love about that story, I mean, NYX and Astonishing X-Men were my 2 books.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, ultimately, New X-Men Academy X is my book of that era. But like,
and I think that's kind of a good consolation prize.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Astonishing ended up being astonishing.
Yeah, it ended up being written by Joss Whedon.
Yeah, thank you. But I mean, I always saw the Laura situation differently and better, and it's the same thing with Joss Whedon. Like there was a lot of stuff that I was like, oh no, he just likes Kitty Pryde, and it took, it always takes women. It always takes smarter, better women doing the emotional labor that they shouldn't have to do to educate
Marjorie
me.
Lou's Astonish is like...
Yeah. Well, I'm even just talking about in fandom, but like it takes women telling me like, no, Joss Whedon was being gross and he was fetishizing as an adult man the girl he had a crush on when he was 14. No, Joe Quesada was making her a weak prostitute, not a strong prostitute. He wasn't putting her on a mission. So like, if you want to see that, that's headcanon, and then you hope that a better writer comes on to an NYX and says like, oh yeah, that was, if I seemed at all out of control or pathetic or like not completely the master of that situation, that was purely what I wanted the people to think. Like, and nobody has done that, but I would love to see that happen. And it's sort of, that's kind of why I don't like that Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly are writing a book called NYX, and that Kaiden's even in it, is because I just know that they're bros, and even though they're some of the good ones, they don't think like that. And maybe they do and Marvel's not letting them, but I feel like there are people, I feel like if Erica Schultz had the chance to write NYX, literally there'd be a scene where Laura would be like, no, I was never like forced into prostitution and beaten down.
Yeah. I want to see that authenticity, because I feel like, when I think about people who might have blown rails off of Amani Coppola, I think of you. And so like,
dream,
I want to see somebody with, I want to see somebody who was in the room when they said, man, Speed 3 taking place on a Zeppelin, this is too crazy. I want somebody with that energy working on NYX. Because what Lanzig and Kelly are crafting is an amazing New Mutants book. But I just wish you would call this what it is, which is X-Men fans love soap drama. That's why they love to read all of the updates in the House of X.
We lost you. I thought you'd come back quicker.
What I said was, please give us unbelievable amounts of pedestrian drama.
Yeah.
And that's what NYX is delivering. NYX is just sort of like, I don't know. NYX is what happens when you spend too long watching people in the laundry room. It's not unfascinating. It's not unspecial. But like, there is a detachment from engagement.
Yeah.
All of the Mojo stuff feels unrelated.
Yeah. That's a separate book.
The Diablo stuff. Okay, first of all, Diablo, ma'am, eat my ass. I love you. You are so hot. I don't even know what to say to your beautiful blonde face and that black and green getup. My God. Bob Quinn is so good.
He's so good. I was really
X versus Marcus Toe. I'm so sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Marcus Toe is so good, because Bob Quinn, his redesign on Angel is at the top of my brain, and I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
But Marcus Toe's understanding of creating dimension, form, anger, power, so good, so interesting. But at the same time, I'm sort of like, she comes out of nowhere, and she's just too powerful to come out of nowhere. She is 1000% giving me Sarah Gaunt syndrome.
Yeah. And I mean, it's I would also call it Gray Gargoyle syndrome, who we got in the Cable book.
Okay, so I know you weren't reading X-Force, but did you catch the big Wendigo figure in this issue?
Yeah.
That's not Wendigo. That's the Brute who lives, who has appeared 5 times, maybe 10 times ever, that's a journey into mystery character. As a Jim guy, so for those of you who don't know, my 2 favorite villains in the entire Marvel universe are Loki and Kingpin because they make great heroes, and that's a thing. So as a big Jim guy, this is like a legitimate, like unbelievably classic Marvel bordering on Agents of Atlas era character. And like, this is fucking cool. But did they even once refer to him as the Brute Who Lived, or did they just call him Dr. Avery over and over again? And does anybody know who the fuck Dr. Avery is? I knew. I was like, ah! And like had like an anxiety attack and immediately went on Wikipedia. But like, this was just one of those things where like exactly what you're saying, those magic moments, those perfect influences, Kid and Nixon appearing in the pages of NYX. But who's catching it if you're not drawing attention to it?
And what are you doing? Like, putting it in is one thing, but where are we going with this? Like, are you trying to make us smile with your comic knowledge? What do you want to have happen here? NYX does feel like 8 separate books, all of which I think should be produced, because again, I still have this feel like when Charles Xavier, and again, maybe it was Cyclops, I can't even remember anymore, is like, we have to do this for all the mutants, the ones who are, and it just flashes to all the various teams. They still feel so disconnected. This does not feel like, again, I'm not sure if there are currently 50,000 mutants on the planet or 2 to 5 million. And if there's 50,000, that's fine, but that's not, I don't think that makes for a lot of compelling storytelling. And if there's 2 to 5 million, they're way too disparate. And I really hated, I guess I didn't hate it because I hopefully somebody says, well, fuck Charles Xavier for saying this, but I hated that he said, and for God's sakes, don't build a school. It really felt like, Brevoort telling all of them, make sure they know we're going to keep up this absolute garbage status quo that we have going. Okay.
Oh, no, not that your point wasn't great. And
no, I'm saying like I'm rolling my eyes at him, not you.
Oh, I was like, please. The other thing I want to say about this crossover that had me really frustrated is I love a cyclical nature. Part of what I talked about during our DC coverage is I like the idea that we can go back to moments that are hallmarks or touchstones of the identity of a character iteration and reinvigorate them. When TK, I don't say that I think you would write the greatest Superman story. I think I would probably write a slightly better Superman story than you would, but I think you'd write a better Batman story. And like, I don't blow smoke up your ass. But one of the things that I don't like is this revisited a story I don't like in a way that I can literally say the ways you'd do it better. If somebody wanted to draw a line about traumatic lineage and then explore it through the singular threads of a tapestry that are woven throughout a bigger picture, right? So if you only wanted to touch the blue strands of a tapestry that included 11 colors, right? I would think that you should give this to exclusively Gail Simone, because I think TK is like a Gail Simone in terms of like that scope of emotional understanding, right? Because I have no reason to think this other than experience, but my favorite part of the entire arc was that Cyclops couldn't stop optic blasting because he was having a panic attack.
Yeah.
That
I agree.
TK, you and I had a pretty tough time in August, and I could not stop optic blasting. And like Wolverine, you walked up to me and you were just like, you gotta stop. And we made it work. And it was like such a clear moment of emotional understanding of a complex topic. And it was boiled down to like 7 panels, and it was the best they could do. But that was the most Gail Simone thing I've ever seen in comics. And you could tell me that 9 other people wrote it, and that was the one set of pages that Gail had nothing to do with. And I just wouldn't believe you, even if you showed me the proof. I guess in that way, I'm like a red voter. And so I feel like if everything had been that strong, I would have loved this crossover.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is so hard to say, but I love the event I got in the finale. And if the event I got in the finale sped 8 issues, I would have loved this crossover.
Yeah,
But
and I think it goes even farther. I think it's over a year ago.
I even get that. I give the finale to no event that exists an A. But the finale I got to the event the event gets a C-. The finale gets a B. And that's because I think Gail Simone shows a dexterous understanding of emotional stability that is unique to comics outside of Harvey P. Carr and Mouse.
But again, I want to point out that I don't know if this was a Gale thing. Maybe this was Marewa Ayadeli. Maybe the decision to do this differently. Maybe this was written a certain way and editorial stepped in which case, if you can step in and do this, you can step in and demand better writing. If it's Gale who wrote this, I would really think that she would have done a better job acknowledging that Cyclops and Wolverine's relationship is something not platonic.
Oh my God, this was anal. They did anal. That was the gayest thing I have.
Well, but then he's
seen.
like, "I'm sorry, I had to stab you," and Cyclops pushes him away. Where this is where I would have liked him to say, like, "You know me," he didn't have to say like, "We've made love so many times, it's okay." But if he had just like, rather than shouldering him away, had put his hand on Logan's shoulder and said like, "Nobody knows me better than you." There's ways where it could have been so subtle, it wouldn't have been sexual. It barely would even have the option of being read romantic, but that specifically was read as, "Oh, it's the guy who's always trying to steal my wife." When
no, I read it explicitly romantic. I only read it romantic, and it was the most romantic thing I have read since Wolverine said that he wanted to see Scott Summers in a
briefs. Yeah. I mean, I love that. I think that might be your hard work. I really don't think that's there.
I think this I don't know. I think this is explicitly gay.
Go pull panels and message me.
Go piss, girl.
Go piss, girl. No, I'm serious. Pull a couple panels and message me, because I would love to believe it. I really read it as so, oh, we're back to this yet again. And nothing would make me happier in this case than to be wrong. So I didn't love that.
No, but you're not wrong. You're talking about the fact that because it's not explicit, the implicity makes it unclear. Yeah. I don't think you're saying anything negative. I think you're asking for a higher standard of commitment to clearness from editorial, not the writers.
Well, maybe the writers, if they didn't do it,
Are you asking for someone gayer than Gail Simone?
No, I'm asking for Gail Simone to put it on. To be gayer, to put it on the panel. And so I don't, but I don't know who did, because again, maybe she wrote it as Wolverine runs up to him and kisses him full on the mouth and goes, I will always stab you with love. And Tom Brevoort was like, no, he has to knock him on the shoulder. That's what I imagine happened. That's what I think happened. That's what I'm pretty sure happened. That's canon event. So just on
the next Yellow Jackets.
There you go. So I didn't love that. And then there's so much that there's so much whining in this issue where Professor Xavier is like, those people weren't even real, and Cyclops doesn't believe him, because I don't know why he would. But then why are we debating the complexity of a stupid plot line that had to get retconned later? If this had started immediately after Professor X had killed the crew of the Agnew in the Fall of the House of X, that's when this crossover had started, and it ended with them being like, you ruined Krakoa, you ruined all of this, and you killed a bunch of people, you're a bad guy. And he at that time could have shown, not screaming at Cyclops whining, but a pure piece of evidence where nobody could refute it, and said yeah, that wasn't real, guys. I will always take the hate on so that you don't have to. That's part of what I do. And rather than, he's bitter, Cyclops is bitter, nobody believes each other, there's no evidence. This all happened for us, the audience, over a year ago. For them, nebulously sometime between 2 weeks and 8 years ago. The way they talk about it, who knows how long it's been. And it's just, that's all confusing. Xavier having the most pure distilled form of his dream, it failing, and then him saying, I gotta go, I gotta retire, and I have a child, and my wife is back. That would have made the end of Krakoa so great. To end Krakoa, put Professor Xavier in a prison, bring in a girlfriend, suggest maybe that he got her pregnant and then did abortions on her, and then have it turn out that that's not right. She was just hysterical, as women get. What a weird thing to even put into the mix. He breaks out of prison. There's a Lalandra egg after we don't do eggs anymore. This is all just like, it's so, the timing is wrong.
Well, and when somebody was like, I thought that Rebirth was only for
just
humans. Mutants. No,
just for
covered that.
Yeah,
humans.
Yeah, we saw
Mary
Steve Rogers.
Jane.
Yeah, we were hanging it was hanging over so many people's heads that we were blackmailing people with it. So to do all that over a year later, to have it be kind of salacious and gossipy and bitchy. And then to, at the very last few minutes, do a bunch of sentimental things that, like, the heart of that sentimentality could still exist, and I think it really would have existed at the end of Krakoa. But with the year of publishing of these books that we've had, I feel so far removed from the emotionality of these people, and there's just was not a lot that you could do to make that happen. So I mean, and that's, I agree with you insofar as, like, as writing goes, as imagining how Charles feels about Rogue, how Emma feels about Charles, who would weep at Charles's retirement, who would go away angry, who would be frustrated, who would show up and say, I love you, man, that's why I stabbed you. All of that, I really do agree. It is top tier. I'm gonna go B+. I'm gonna be a harsh grader and say B+. In the context of the event, B-, event's a C+, C. No, the event is a C. Maybe C-. And that's just what we've got. I really don't know how we are going to fix this without really drastic changes, without the next announcement of something like House of X. Like, I think we are in this
Imperial.
Well, Imperial seems cool, and I'm perfectly happy to see Charles go into space with Lalandra.
Just like Wolverine Revenge, it seems really cool, and like John Hickman is totally on his game. I mean, no, look at my face before you reply.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and I just, like, it's the thing I said to you. I feel like every 5 years they put out a thing and they're like, Marvel space will never be the same, and then they do the exact same story every time. And I think, like, they've done it so many times that now there'd be a cool story to do in the fact that, like, there was once a thing called the 100 Years War because they had no technology. Things move so slowly that there just could be no progress. It would be really funny to be like, because all of these civilizations are so advanced, the leader of the known galaxy changes every couple months. And that's a problem. Like, when technology is so advanced and civilizations sprawl so much, it results in not like these massive sustained empires, but in empires changing every 2 months. And how does that affect the Marvel universe? Like, there's a fucking pitch for you. But, like, just being like, no, the Wakandans decided that they wanted to conquer space. Kree-Skrull War 3. Now everybody's married to each other. Oh no, the Brood showed up. Nothing will ever be the same. This guy laid a brood egg and it's him, but it's not him. It's different. It doesn't really feel like nothing will ever be this. Oh no, an annihilation wave. Yep. This is just another Tuesday with Marvel Cosmic. Convince me that it matters. And again, they were doing a great job with Krakoa, with the race for Mysterium, with establishing a Regent of Soul, with establishing Mars as a presence on the galactic stage. And Hickman being around is great, but this does feel like he's going to be like, no, it's actually a Skrull invasion. Muted.
And one of the things that is so interesting for me is that the Hulks are like elevated as the Hulk family to the Shi'ar Empire. And like, if Hickman is saying, wow, I am so impressed by the Green Door, I am so overwhelmed by how the Hulk universe has become its own magical enterprise within the Marvel universe, like maybe we will in 10 years be talking about a Hulk Supreme, the way we have talked about a Sorcerer Supreme and a Financier Supreme. I am so excited about the future of all of this, but I think if this only sought to give Xavier to Hickman, that's not a great reason to do this. If this was just to take Xavier off the board, you should have done it during Krakoa. I feel like where we spent so much time building narratives toward, like, to be really silly, what if you were told next year there was going to be a special called Charlie Brown and the Adults Who Go wah, 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 wah. And we were going to find out that at 16 years old, everyone in the Charlie Brown universe goes through Warity, where they can no longer communicate, and they become wah-wah-wahs. And you would say that is not the best use of all of those parts to grow those characters. But at the same time, while you might not have agreed with every decision they made by advancing Archie into adulthood, we can pretty clearly draw some lines that say at least these ideas were searching to put Archie in an adult universe. I feel sometimes like when they seek to grow the X-Men up, it is at the cost of one character or maybe a team of characters. Xavier as your scapegoat is fine because he's your older white man, and we really do understand that outside of Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, that older white men are often Strom Thurmond. But the complex thing that we are left with is the singular vilification of Xavier as the moral imperative of the X-Men allows for the return of Mr. Sinister in the pages of Exceptional X-Men number 7. Because we never hold characters like Sinister up to a moral imperative, we allow him to come back because the things he does are never that terrible. That reflects kind of like the political electorate. And I find myself frustrated that Xavier is the only person held to a realistic moral standard, not because I am a defender of Xavier, but because I am a defender of justice, and justice asks that everyone who violates its code at least apologize. What we have done is we have begun an era of X-Men where the only people who are asked to apologize are Rogue, are Xavier, are Scott. And everyone else, when they transgress, are given the benefit of youth, even when they're older. And so I'm frustrated that the real lesson here was, hasn't Xavier been through enough? Well, no, it's not that Xavier's been through enough. It's that you're not holding other characters accountable enough. And so this retraces elements of New Mutants from the mid-1980s, and yet does not give me anything stronger than what Claremont was able to deliver. I feel like we dealt with a lot of sound and fury signifying the past. And I'm hoping for better from a team of exquisite talents, whether it's the writing or the art. But what winds up happening when you revisit Hush is you are revisiting Hush. And it is still some version of Batman, not really versus the Joker, but kind of versus the Joker, but not really. But maybe it's this person, but maybe it's not. And maybe you think you know, but maybe you don't. And I love a good distraction, but you can't always distract me from realizing that I'm being distracted. And likewise with X-Men, You can't always tell me that something is new just because you've put the word new on it. Sometimes you're giving me something old and hoping that I won't appreciate the same references. But the truth is, I'm old, so I have those references. And you might need to adopt a new strategy if you're going to continue to promote Marvel Digital Unlimited.
Yeah, we got the announcement today that Nintendo, on top of doing Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which is an isometric action game in the style of like the X-Men cabinet and a bunch of Nintendo and Super Nintendo games that came out. There was an Avengers one as well.
And the score fucks. I don't know if anybody checked out that trailer, but that score fucks.
Score is very good. The game looks fun. It's not my favorite style of game, although now that
I agree.
The reason I really didn't like a lot of them is because the controls were just absolute garbage. But now we've obviously solved for that. The Scott Pilgrim game was very fun, so I think this will be cute. I think it'll be fun. But Nintendo announced virtual game cards during the Nintendo Direct, basically allowing for digital game sharing, and it's a little unintuitive. It's a little difficult, but Nintendo looked at I know my own consumer behavior, and I have absolutely just not bought games because I knew both Jake and I wanted to play them. I knew they did not have a cart, and I didn't want to spend, if the game's $20, I didn't want to spend $40 on 2 copies of it. And there are plenty of games where it's like maybe Jake doesn't want to play. This is kind of even the bigger thing. Maybe Jake doesn't want to play them, but Jake and I are on the same family plan. We actually could have played each other's digital games. It's a little difficult, but it's not impossible. But like maybe it's a game that Nico and I would play together, but we're not on the same family plan. And if there's no cart, how am I going to give it to Nico? I don't really want to spend $20 and then tell Nico to spend $20. If it's not a great game, we've given Nintendo $40 for something not great. Now I can say like, hey, this is $20. I'm just going to bite the bullet, and hopefully you like it too, Nico. And now I can give Nico that game. Now the point there is just Nintendo saw a strategy in which they could say like, no, we want the $40 from both of you, and we would say, okay, well then we're not going to give you $40 at all. So we'll just walk away from this sale. And they said, no, we'll take the 20 from one of you to make any kind of sale and get this going. And we are at the point with Marvel Unlimited and with comics in general where we got to start thinking, I'm walking away from a lot of books, and Nico is too. Like we're walking away from books together as reading partners because we don't want to spend it. But like, and I'm not saying that what Marvel needs to do is virtual comics so I can give Nico my comics, but I'm saying think like Nintendo did. Think outside the box a little bit, come up with a process and come up with a way to make any sale. Because the days of, the days of selling the way you thought you were going to are done. Like we will walk away from a sale entirely if we don't want to spend that money. But again, you could get $20 out of one of us because we know we can share it. So comics needs to start sort of thinking like that way about their distribution models and stop ever again for any reason, no matter what happens, partnering with companies that do NFT or crypto or any stuff like that.
I love that you are bringing up how much it is about a holistic picture, because there is no move that I feel is made in any single industry that doesn't indicate something unique. So seeing that One World Under Doom is what's going on during the Robert Downey Jr. Dr. Doom announcement, when I see something like Marvel Cosmic Invasion is announced using the Secret Invasion font, after the Secret Invasion miniseries didn't really do anything, well, then what am I looking at? I'm looking at Annihilus. I'm looking at or Annihilus. His name is literally so I can't exactly say it wrong. I'm now immediately thinking about the deeper bench of the Fantastic Four characters, and now I wonder if Annihilus is going to be the bad guy of First Steps. Because who's the bad guy of First Steps? Well, now I'm thinking back to who was the bad guy of any Marvel project, of any project. And, Kevo and I have been on this like unbelievable, voracious eat 'em up of a lot of single season shows, of a lot of single seasons of shows that we enjoy. And one of the things that I am finding so fulfilling is this idea that we can dig into the bench of a character without it necessarily pulling and depleting that bench. DC has so many characters like the Joker who are so incredibly, multifaceted, even if you think he's facile, that he has an iterative 3 versions of himself. He is the Joker hat trick over in DC right now. Likewise, when I think about, Marvel and the Fantastic Four, I'm immediately drawn to the idea that there isn't just one Fantastic Four villain in the form of Doctor Doom or a backup in the form of Galactus, but there's Annihilus, there's Mole Man, there's Diablo, a reference to the X-Force stuff we talked about. I am feeling really plenipotentiary about so much that we're talking about. So often we walk away from these episodes going B-, but I hope for better. But like today, I'm walking away going B, but God damn it, it's good. And that's a really cool feeling. And so I'm really excited to walk away feeling really positive and excited. And I'd love to know what you're feeling.
Not positive or excited. I love that you are, though, because I will feed off your energy.
Remove.
Done. He's out. Yeah, she's a hater through and through, and I'm never going to stop drinking the haterade. But no, I mean, I really do. I keep my expectations low. I'm never hurt. I'm never disappointed. And then I really do feed off of your positivity. You tend to be the one who sets the agenda for the show and decides what we're going to read. We will discuss it, obviously, but a lot of times I will defer to you. And a lot of times that's because like I will come up to everything and be like, fuck this, fuck this, fuck this, fuck this. And if you tell me like, oh, I was actually really excited to read the Batman book, I at least don't go into it going, oh, fuck, another Batman book. I go, oh, here's one Nico's interested in. That's a start. That's one in the plus column. That's all I need. And then I can have fun with it, and I can still critique it. I can still have critiques. And sometimes I will, even if it's like, here's one Nico's interested in. There's one in the plus column. No, this book was bad to me. I just really didn't enjoy it. And even Nico liking it doesn't mean that it's something that I can say that I resonated with. I'm walking away from this. I'm walking away from this being pleased that we have some closure on Professor X with the X-Men right now. Again, I feel like he will be back. We'll be in a school within 10 years, but who knows? I'm not hopeful because I just really don't see anywhere good that any of this stuff can go. We've got our summer blockbuster event, One World Under Doom, which is not the worst. So like, who knows? And for as much as I spent last night with you guys who were very tolerant, absolutely chugging about 6 gallons of the haterade. I'm excited to see the machine of the MCU moving forward. Like I said to you, like, this all sounds bad to me. I wouldn't have cast any of these people. I wouldn't have announced it like this. Nico has a great reasons for why he believes they did it. And it's not just the comics thing, but like, I just wouldn't have done it. And I wouldn't have consumed it, unless I like had this job that I do where I have to. But all of that said, as I said to Nico today, I will be the first person in Maine to own tickets to see these films when they launch. Hopefully at the time I will not be living here anymore, but I will be the first person in the queue that I can get into to buy tickets to see these films. I'm there. I'm sat already. I'm sitting in that theater now. I'm just waiting for the rest of me to catch up. So like, do I not love all of this hype and silliness? Sure, but like at the same time, I'm still excited. I'm already in the theater, so there's that.
And I really love that you brought up that point, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to read that minor soliloquy. I was having an opportunity to discuss the chair reveal with somebody that I find intelligent, who said outright that they thought that compared to things like Spider-Man Homecoming, Doctor Strange, or Deadpool and Wolverine, that this felt kind of like, why are you putting everything up front when so much of this is about the reveal? And I pointed out that for me, it's about that the nature of the leak has significantly changed. It's a very different world. And I appreciate feeling like a lot of those films were kept secret, but I personally didn't walk into the theater with a whole lot of surprises. And not because I look at spoiler sites, but because I read the New York Times, where the entertainment section was just like, did you know Elizabeth Olsen is filming Doctor Strange, where she's going to be the bad guy? And like, it wasn't hard to decode things when what all I really wanted to do was know how my stock portfolio was doing. Like, it you couldn't avoid it, And so I, went on to say that the nature of the set leak has changed really considerably. And because of that, people, when they cancel appearances at Comic Cons, that's a dead giveaway. There really are no surprises left because people dox, every Chloe Zhao as she's just trying to shop at Kroger's. And so she's got to say, I'm sorry, guys, I'm directing this movie, and just can't have like a normal day. Instead of this illusion of maintained secrecy, Disney, Marvel, and the bigger picture is looking to get ahead of TMZ saying, did you know? And I'm really glad that they are, because if Disney isn't going to come out and say, we're proud that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be a part of this film, I'm going to feel like they're embarrassed about him. No, just be like, I love kale. Is it a weird vegetable? Sure. I love kale. Robert Downey Jr., as far as I'm concerned, is the kale of the Avengers. I'm kidding. Just, come out and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're spending our money on. This is what we're promoting. Because that's what I want to support you for doing. I don't think that chairs have trended this hard since somebody said, what if they rocked?
It was a silly idea, but it was an idea. And part of marketing is coming up with new ideas to do things like this. Comments that I see on a lot of entertainment periodicals from people about things like this are, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Why is this news? Because it is news. Whether you like it or not, when information like this is exchanged, it's technically news. It's just 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't the same industry that it is now, where people didn't really care the same way. I actually found out that Fraggle Rock Season 2 was coming because of a listing with like some sort of trademark or set, like some professional credit thing. Like people were able to tell, but there was no announcement because people don't actually care as much. It's Fraggle Rock that didn't need a thing. But like Robert Downey Jr., the 26 other people that were announced, that is news. It's going to be news, especially with how many there are and how high profile so many of them are. So they have to do things like this. And we can find it annoying, or we can understand that it's just the nature of entertainment news as it's evolved so much over the course of just our lifetime.
I do both.
It's tough because when TK sits there going, I'm handsome, funny smirk, I'm always like, is he going to be mean or adorable? And in that case, he managed to straddle the line like it was a balance beam, and he had fallen off while trying to do a gymnastic move.
Always.
Kevo, one of the things I love that you pointed out is that, like, it's about evolving. The quote I have used to describe that video to 11 people is, we're the future, Charles, not them.
Yeah,
and
I'm one of those 11.
I am...
Well,
I am like, I have always loved Magneto 1,000 times more than Xavier, but we are the future, Charles, not.
And we've already seen speculation that there's going to be another release from Robert Downey Jr. and Marvel Studios themselves. But we also know immediately after that 5-hour video drop, they dropped a 1.5-minute version. So we know they are automatically not going to get the same amount of hits that they got in the first chair video. So will they even do that, or will it be something new? Who knows?
I don't think it can be the craft services table. So I have to assume it's going to be another set of chairs. But I do believe whoever comes out for that last chair is going to be a significant surprise. I think it's going to be Chris Evans, who has not been announced, or Brie Larson, or I think it's going to be someone who has not been announced. But I think anybody who thinks that Chris Evans isn't going to put the shield back on is like crazy.
I think you're right, but I also think there's going to be surprises. Like I think that's the other thing is we just shouldn't. I mean, these are great reveals, and like none of these people were a surprise, or would have been seeing them in the film. I think Elizabeth Olsen is lying, and I think she will not show up in a chair. And
yeah, the fact that she's like 3 times 9, tripling down 40,000% to the 8th degree. I just want to be like, Mama.
No, I don't even know what Marvel is.
Yeah, no, the Lady Macbeth doth protest too much. This is some flavors of entanglement.
Yeah. And I think similarly, I think it's more likely we won't get a chair for Chris Evans, but I don't think that means he won't be there. And I'll be interested to see who those people are. Like I really could see maybe it is him and Scarlett Johansson doesn't get a chair but does show up. Maybe it's vice versa. But yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. I'm waiting for the first person that we get who has not been announced at all, ever, who has not been speculated on, and they just say, Lisa E will be playing, the
Watcher.
The Watcher. I was going to say but we've had Eternity, Living Tribunal.
But Amy Poehler is going to walk in and be like, hey guys, it's me, I'm D-Man. And like, we're just going to be like, yeah, Amy Poehler's D-Man.
D-Man, that's just what's happening now.
And I mean, on that subject,
D-Man, I cry.
On that subject, I'm also curious, are we going to get its Power Man that's still coming up? Are we going to get someone announced in one of these chairs that we haven't even seen on screen, but we know is coming?
And I wonder if I wish I hadn't seen it, but I saw a very specific that photo from Daredevil season 2, and everybody's like, oh, so you've seen this actor or that actor. And I'm like, no, I've seen a costume and a location that makes it so clear that they're doing a very specific story that I have lost sleep. And
do I know the story?
I don't know. And I am of the mindset that Daredevil might show up in a very similar fashion to how Wanda showed up in Endgame. And I have some real concerns that he is going to start manifesting some of the weird Daredevil magic abilities that he manifests before stuff gets real weird. And nice. I think he might manifest those magic abilities and they might be in this 2-part film. And I would be thrilled. But cool. Like, for people who don't know, Daredevil can be invisible in a room and can like help resurrect the dead.
I mean, he's also had Yggdrasil Billy clubs. We've done fun stuff, and we might do it again. We'll go too long if we talk about this, but I'm interested to see if Muse actually has powers in this.
I'm convinced he has Muse space. Muse space is this weird psychic space that Muse can enter that he can bring people, and I'm convinced that Muse space exists.
I hope you're right. I would like for that because I want to. I don't need Daredevil to. I don't need him to have Yggdrasil sticks on this show this season. But I would love to. We flirted with some powers at the very end of the Defender series in Defenders. And that was like kind of as close as we got, even though we saw Dragon Bones, we didn't do a lot.
I was literally just going to say, these are Dragon Bones, no other part of the dragon. Don't worry about it.
But it's literally just magic petrol. I'll be interested to see. It would be nice to start getting him to interact with the supernatural, technology, all the stuff, science, magic. But we do got to make sure that we set aside some time to talk about all of that, because Fisk is officially tired of being embarrassed in front of Vanessa, and by embarrassed I mean fucked. And
next week we're talking about 3 Daredevil titles.
Okay, we're gonna do 3.
It sounds like a great time to also talk about the Daredevil TV show. We'll have 3 issues of Daredevil. That's going to be Daredevil 19, Daredevil Raise Hell 3, and Daredevil Cold Day in Hell #1. plus the 2 episodes back to back from last week, plus the 1 episode from next week. Fuck, that just sounds like the sexiest day I can possibly imagine. That is just absolutely Rocco DiSpirito kissing me on the face gently while making me breakfast. That's the most incredibly sexual day I can imagine.
Sure.
French toast.
Ugh. So, yeah, no, breakfast foods are the absolute way to seduce me. But speaking of seducing people, Kevo, I asked you to watch Batman Hush today, thinking that it would give you a good introduction to Thomas, and then, no! But, you know, I am, as you know, sexually obsessed with the Riddler, so seeing him look all cute here was real fun.
You know who voices Riddler and Harley Quinn?
No, who?
Jim Rash.
Okay.
That's so funny. Superman and Lois Lane are voiced by Jerry O'Connell and Rebecca Romaine. So that's also very funny.
Nice.
And did you know who was Selena?
No.
Emma Swan.
Oh, I love that. So I forget who Selena is in Harley Quinn. It's not somebody super important, but the Superman is James Wolk.
Oh, love that.
Jim Rash is really, really good. There's a bunch of really, really good voice actors.
Listen,
and Alan Tudyk is Joker, right? Yeah.
Alan Tudyk is Joker and Clayface.
Like a set of Legos, I would take Jim Rash apart and have a great time.
There's also a bunch of jokes specifically about Joker or about Riddler getting jacked. He sets up a device to fuck with people, and they end up putting him in the device, and it makes him get really jacked. So just like for a bunch of episodes, he's in a singlet and just has enormous thighs. It's really good. You got to watch it. You're gonna,
Riddler is inexplicably the sexiest Batman rogue. I am obsessed with him, and have been for quite a long time.
His vaguely racist sounding last name.
Yeah, I definitely don't say his name 3 times fast while on a tilt-a-whirl. But Kevo, final thoughts. Get us out of here. Shut this down. Make it go away.
Yeah, we gotta go.
And stop talking. Oh my God. Jesus Christ, boys. You asked a question like 3 minutes ago, and I've been waiting to answer. Motherfuckers. Jesus. Because I was prepared to compliment you. I was going to say you've spoken so lovingly of Hush, and it is so memorable the way that you've described it and the way that you've talked about it. I actually was able to see in the Hush movie the elements of Hush that were there, which is what made it so bizarre to watch that this isn't the story that we ended up getting. So it's really bizarre that now you've shown me 2 overall well-produced DC animated films that have such amazing casts, but then really fumble the ball on what the story is for absolutely no reason. So I'm sorry that keeps happening to you. I loved TK's point of, well, there's just so much that you can kind of do whatever. But at least we're getting a lot of really interesting stuff with Daredevil, like you also pointed out. I think it's really cool that we are sort of speed running through a lot of stuff, because for as great as Netflix Daredevil was, it was a lot of the same, it felt, for as many episodes as they got through, whereas in just 6 weeks, not even 6 weeks, but 6 episodes of this new Daredevil, I feel like we've seen so much and seen so much potential. So I'm excited for that.
You know, Kevo, I feel like you took away from this the best possible case scenario. And, you know, when I think about the experience of seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, I think that's kind of like the energy and the vibe they were hoping to engender for people. That's sort of like, this is cool. People have talked about this so positively from the past. This is something I'm familiar with, even if I haven't seen it personally. I really feel like you are the proto fan. And, you know, I know Marvel is grateful for what you do, and I'm grateful for what you do, producing this show at least 3 times a week. You are the globe-trottingest producer all over X's for show. And where can everybody find you if they want to know more about all the brilliant things you think?
You can find me on the socials at Kevo Really. That's KevoReally.
Love it. And, you know, the actual only reason I was disappointed not to do this episode yesterday is because I could not wait to hear what TK thought about X-Manhunt Omega and thought about Batman Hush 2, or as we have officially dubbed it, Hatoosh. And other than Trixie Mattel sneezing while falling down a flight of stairs, I really do love this project being named Hush 2, because it almost makes it sound like it's aware it's stupid. No, you shush as well. Like, it's almost aware it's kind of dumb, but like it's going to do it anyway, because that is what DC does as a brand. And, TK, you coming in at this incredible high point with everything Mark Waid is doing and everything Absolute is doing, and then in contrast, in a loving way, this sort of silly project that has already started in a really positive way. How do you feel about what you've read this week, and where can everybody find you?
As far as how I feel about Marvel stuff this week, I am I'm just drifting in the void. Not really even in a bad way, but definitely not in a good way. Like there's so little that I'm looking at that I'm excited about and have hope for. Even, I got a little critical on the internets about Marvel's latest Pride issue. Just the creative names that we saw announced versus who else might be on there, what else might be going on. But so male. Al Ewing is not an excuse for not hiring other queer writers.
Yeah, no, geniuses don't make them. Being a genius doesn't make you trans. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like,
yeah, I mean, I love Al Ewing so much, but also like it can't just be Al Ewing all the time. Just because we found an Alan Moore who's nice doesn't mean we can use him for everything.
Hey,
I mean, come on. But with DC, I'm much more like, I don't feel like I'm floating in a void, but I feel like I'm floating in a lovely sea of low-key confusion, having fun with it. I love you so much. I'm not crazy excited about Hush. A ton of my excitement comes from doing a Batman thing with you. But like, Hush isn't quite my vibe, my world. Hush, the original, or a sequel to it, but we continue to absolute, and I'm having a lot of fun absoluting. I am very excited to see what we get with Absolute Green Lantern next week. And yeah, I'm stoked to keep going with DC. And if you want to talk to me about that, you just find me on either Blue Sky or Instagram at TK Accidental. Nico, take it away.
Gay balls about everything you just said. I feel really strongly, but maybe from the other perspective, as somebody who is super ensconced in the world of DC, I really enjoy what we're watching, but reading, but like watching, because it's also like
watching it develop, watching it happen.
Exactly. I'm also kind of wary, because like I've seen these patterns before. Likewise with Marvel, I feel like they don't step out of the pattern long enough to break it. So like a lot of what they're doing with From the Ashes already feels like the end of first year mistakes with Krakoa. And I know we're not exactly saying that Marvel is a broken machine, but when you ultimately realize that the final product always has this particular error in it, maybe it's time to examine the gears. And I don't think it's any one worker. I don't think it's any creator. I think you could literally take every creator at Marvel exactly as they are and just put it back together slightly differently in a way that would be so much more beautiful. Likewise, I feel like what maybe DC needs to remember sometimes is that TK's money is as beautiful as mine, and that TK's fandom is as beautiful as mine, and that TK's dedication is as beautiful as mine. So why are you making work that only appeals to people with knowledge bases as complete as mine? I feel like you would want to get somebody like TK who would want to go on and buy your books for the rest of his life. And while some of these books are doing that, it doesn't sound like they all are. So I would hope that DC takes this as an opportunity to kind of grow inclusively in a way that Marvel maybe needs to start remembering to grow exclusively. DC don't always do things that only appeal to people from 30 years ago, but Marvel stopped doing things like nobody from 5 years ago was reading. That's my conundrum. And if you guys want to find out more about that, Nico Action, Nicoaction, Nico Action Music, Nicoaction If you guys want to find out more about this incredible series of shows, that's HTML, Husbands Talking More or Less. That's X is for show, X is for podcast. And if you guys want to help us out, that's like, comment, subscribe, and also check us out on the socials. That's Kevo Really, TK Accidental, and Nico Action. But then there's also 3 things you guys can do that mean a little bit more to us because it's about you guys. Number 1, please stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. But number 2, please be brave because it's about what you mean to say. We love what you guys say, whether it's comments, whether it's communicating with us privately, or whether it's the thoughts you guys have that you take into the world that influence how things go in the future. Please keep being brave. But number 3, please evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, incredible. Who you are today, amazing. But who you are tomorrow, that's the real Batman, Hatoosh. And we cannot wait to Hatoosh you then. So stay Thomas Elliott, stay TK being new to DC, stay Kevo being real positive on Hush the movie, and we'll see you then.